1. The art of ancient Greece is one of her greatest gifts to posterity. But when one thinks of ancient Rome, her gladiators, her government, or perhaps her armies, other conspicuous mementos. True, the vividly colored murals at Pompeii are spectacular. So are the murals in neighboring towns, also preserved by the eruption of Vesuvius in AD 79. But Pompeii and its neighbors were gay seaside resorts, only provincial cousins of Rome. According to description by Roman historians, the wall paintings in Rome itself far surpassed these from Pompeii. Indeed, it is probably because there is little else that survives to compare with it, that we prize the art of Pompeii and its neighbors so highly. Is this to say, then, that Roman art has little merit, that is a second rate renown of the glorious Greek art which preceded it? The relative merits of Greek and Roman art have been debated by scholars for centuries. Let's leave the debate to the scholars and turn instead to a more meaningful way in which all art may be judged. That is, as a reflection of the culture that produced it. Just as pop art, like it or not, will give future ages a meaningful image of our society and its values. So Roman art is an excellent indicator of what mattered to people in Roman times. And just as our tastes change and develop in succeeding generations, so did those of ancient Rome. The changes were reflected in simple things like hairstyles and dress, and in more complicated things like housing, places of worship, and imperial monuments. Changes in taste can also be seen in portraiture, from the idealistic on the left to the realistic on the right, and in the subject matter depicted in household and public decoration, from elaborate mythological scenes to simple decorative motifs. As you follow this brief discussion of the development and decline of ancient Rome, you will be able to spot many other aspects of the civilization where new ideas supplanted old and then often were returned to. It's hard to begin at the beginning, for this much controversy over just where and when that is. Most likely, the original Latin people who settled Rome came from north to the Alps prior to 1000 BC, sometime before 800 BC. Another mass of people, this time from the east, moved into the area north of Rome known as Tuscany. Hence, they were called Etruscans. During the 7th century BC, these people moved south into Latin territory and took over the rule of Rome. And by the 6th century BC, the Greeks had begun settling in the southern Italy and Sicily. Here are two of the temples they built there, but in 509 BC, the Etruscan kings who had been ruling Rome were tossed out by the Latin populace. For the next few centuries, it was the Romans' turn to make conquests, and this they did with great success. 200 years before Christ, they controlled all of Italy and the entire Mediterranean coast in Europe and in part of North Africa. But it is time to take a closer look at the culture and the structure of the republic which the Romans developed once they had ousted the Etruscan rulers. In, in essence, the Latins were a produce agricultural people. They remained basically unsophisticated, practical, and airs-bound, no matter how many different cultures they assimilated during the course of their expansion. Hence, the art of in which they made their most distinctive contribution, which was architecture, the most artisan of the arts, the invention of the concrete and the use of the arch on a monumental scale enabled them to build roads, bridges, and amphitheaters on a scale never before contemplated. And and like many basically middle class societies, including our town, great size and scope were worried about painstaking detail. In the other arts too, we can see the matter-of-fact character of the Roman mind. The realism of Roman portrait sculpture is often surprising, especially when compared with the Greek. The idealized innocent, innocence of the Greek face on the left contrasts dramatically with the careworn Roman face on the right. The old cliche that one cannot imagine a Greek statue carrying on the intelligent conversation seems all the more true when compared with the typical Roman portrait. While the Greeks sought the ideal, the Romans preferred the ordinary and everyday. The Greeks used analogies of man and God to describe historical events, while the Romans preferred to see the actual events in complete everyday, factual detail. Here are some Roman soldiers erecting a fortress prior to battle, for example. In painting and mosaic too, we find the Romans including such commonplace subjects as a donkey being brought his dinner, and to lend credibility to a human portrait, the Roman artist located his subject within a tangible setting, like other land and tradition-bound societies. The Roman had a terrific knack for organization, illustrated here by the complex plan of the Roman Forum. The organization of the Roman Republican government is still a model for modern societies. Their Senate, like ours, consisted of the most learned and influential people in the country. As a ruling body, both the strength and the weakness of the Senate was its capacity to prevent any one person's obtaining strong individual powers. The loyalty of the well-organized and efficient Roman armies also contributed to the stability of the early republic. So did the God judgment the Romans exercised in allowing conquered peoples to maintain their way of life almost completely intact? In the early Republican period, the religion of the Romans, like other aspects of their culture, was essentially earthbound. He is the Roman goddess of spring, the Primavera. Roman religion really amounted to a suspicious nature worship. Here, for example, is Flora, goddess of flowers. The concept of family was also worshipped with elaborate ritual and ceremony. A symbolic national fireside was watched over by Vesta, goddess of the domestic hearth. Here is one of her temples. Since the Roman readily adapt anything that struck their fancy in the customs of the people they conquered, they collected as an astonishing array of Greek and other Eastern gods during the Republican period. Here is the Hercules, translated from the Greek Heracles. This is a follower of Patrus, who was the Greek god Dionysus, and here the Aphrodite from the Roman called Venus. During the imperial period, after the death of Christ, who is seen here as the god shepherd, Christianity began to threaten the personality cult that surrounded the emperor. From that time on, the Roman leaders tried to control religion and make it a tool of the state. But until then, tolerance for foreign religious practice, such as the funeral dance seen here, and tolerance for foreign ideas in general, was a significant virtue of Roman civilization. And in art, the powerful influence of foreigners was never seriously threatened. Note the Greek style in the symmetry of the first century Roman walk, in the deeply cute draperies on these second century Roman figures, and in the classical poses in the third century Roman walk. As you will see, time and again the Roman returned to their acknowledged masters in the field of art and culture, the ancient Greeks.